Hello, everybody, and we are going live with the Lessons Learned podcast. We were in the middle of a discussion when I interrupted my co-host Chappell. I was like, "Yeah, you better gotta shut it because we're gonna start." But yeah, so hi everybody, and we have a lot of news today. Mostly around the subject that we're going to be talking about. So, in a way, we're going to start with the news and we're going to be talking about the subject until we get to the subject. And the subject is what happens after the big game. And what do I mean by that? What happens after, all these big games? In this case, the wave of MMO lights crashes, and we've kind of seen it crash with Anthem. We're not talking about a crash of the video game industry. I'm talking about just a crash of these particular type of games. What happens after? Um, and I think we might be surprised at some of the things that could happen. Some of them will be pretty obvious, but some of them not so much. So let's start with the news. Let's start with something cheery that has nothing to do with necessarily a big game, although this is an ongoing online game, so that's not being in the news for a while. We talked about this a bit last week, and there's some good news that Elite Dangerous pilot stranded since last year has finally been rescued. So there has been an attempt to rescue a character who went off the galaxy to see how far he could go, got stranded, or at least one of his ships got stranded, and other players created a way to get him to him and bring him back. So congratulations. I mean, this is sort of a sort of second lifestyle thing where people think about video games, especially in virtual
Yeah.
space. This is the kind of stories that you're like, oh, we live in this virtual space and we do these things and we embody, the fact that we're explorers and stuff like that. Um, and I think it's a pretty cool piece of news, if only because, well, it happened. And
Yeah. And it's kind of sad. I think of like that'd be something neat if that could happen in like No Man's Sky, but it kind of it might now with the latest major overhaul it had with where you can have four players and stuff. But no, you couldn't have like everyone who's playing like go help this a player who's stranded out in like the galaxy with no fuel and no supplies.
yeah. Um, Another piece of news which I just stumbled on top of, which is not good news, but it's interesting. Um, it looks like Microsoft is testing Xbox One game support on Windows 10 PCs. At least on PC gamers. Um, for a while now, I think from Windows 7 at least, Microsoft is trying to integrate the Microsoft ecosystem on the Xbox with PCs. Um, I I know that back in when I had Windows 7 and an Xbox 360, there were options to integrate it, but I never could actually get them to work together. Um, and now I think we're setting. So I don't know exactly what it is. This is beyond simply playing together. So it comes coming more PC like than ever, and this is from PC Gamer, and I'll link to it as well. Um, it's true. While the nearest generation Xbox One doesn't mean you can play Xbox One games on your Windows system. Not yet. Anyway, however, this is evidence suggests that Microsoft is working toward that goal. Um, yeah, I mean, this is interesting. Essentially, making the Xbox a closed PC, a la the forgotten Steam box. That's what it seems to be going for?
Hmm.
But
But instead of making like a proprietary box, it's like try to make their games available to everywhere.
yeah, if you have a PC and you can play Xbox games, and you can have an Xbox, you can play your PC games that are part of
And
Xbox. I
and I
guess.
believe we reported a couple months ago that they were testing out streaming capabilities on cell phones in terms
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
trying to get the processing of the game being played elsewhere on higher hardware offsite and you playing directly from your phone.
Mm-hmm. Especially, this is some investigation they've done. It says, I'm going to quote here, it appears that Microsoft is pushing out the Xbox One version and not a PC port. Further evidence that can be found in XCV file format the game uses. particular game they're talking about. It uses the XP file format on 2019 specifically for Xbox One games, and in this case, it can be installed during the update PowerShell application Windows 10 19H1 test build. And also, they talk about Durango, which is a code name for the Xbox One. I suppose it also applies to the Xbox One X as well. This might be something testing it today so that when they go into the new hardware, which also in the news, there's some rumors, and this is from Inside Gaming, that they might announce in E3 this year the new Xbox. Although, I guess the way Microsoft is treating them, it wouldn't really be a new generation. It's just maybe an updated version of the Xbox, right? Maybe.
It's like, I wonder if that's what it's going to slowly turn into, like these console iterations. It's just going to be more revisions. Although we have heard rumors that Sony's working on the PlayStation 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to be a hardware revision, but
no. I think, well, a couple of issues with this. First of all, is piracy, because piracy is rife. I mean, console games have been pirated before, certainly, but because of part of the reason is because of so much control of hardware and software that manufacturers have, they can tweak it so it's very hard to pirate, and also that it's a closed ecosystem. So in a PC, wherever you have a PC, as long as the PC has the wherewithal to run the game, it can run the games, right? So piracy, there's no physical one platform that can play your game within the much larger PC world. It's not even an ecosystem; it's the entire world. But Xbox has some Xbox games, and like, for example, you take a disc from an Xbox OC or an Xbox, whatever you put, if you still have the and put it on your PC, it won't read it. It's a different standard, right? Same thing with Sony games, right? It's a way of copying, copy protection. But it can be done if you know how to do it. It's just
usually through emulators, but
yeah.
Well, the thing is, I believe that one of the new console iterations that we're going to announce was a cheaper diskless version of a console, which is it's interesting. It's sort of moving along the lines of what they originally wanted when they released the Xbox One, almost 5-6 years ago now.
Yeah, close to it. I think 2012.
That they were moving towards the diskless media and wanted to make it digital only. There was a hard pushback, but I think now a couple of years later, it's going to be a little more accepted now, because I think a lot of people, you're still going to get us who prefer physical media over just digital, but I think now people are going to be a little more lax on it. They're going to be like, it's not that much of a deal breaker now.
Yeah. And we
especially if it shaves up like $100 off the console, because they're still going to have a one with the disc tray in it. It's just going to be a cost more.
Yeah, and that has the sort of but again, it could be a situation where, I mean, you still have it today. I mean, most games are online, even if you have the physical copy. So you have to have some kind of DRM or something like that, which we sort of complained about before. Talking about online stores, here we'll start with the bad news. GOG lays off around a dozen employees amid report of financial struggles. One of the laid-off employees said GOG has been struggling in recent months. GOG, of course, is Good Old Games and one of the Steam competitors of online stores. And that goes alongside this other piece of news from GOG. GOG is ending its fair price package so it can give devs a larger cut. So instead of GOG being really a competition to Steam, they're now feeling the competition probably from Epic.
Yeah. That's I don't know. I kind of had mixed feelings about that news article when you linked it to me. It's just I wasn't really sure what to make of it. My first thing is like, GOG is still relevant, which is kind of sad. And then I kind of had to work these mental gymnastics. It's like, GOG, aren't they owned by CD Projekt Red?
Yeah.
Which is like, they would really fire people. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. Here's one of the quotes on the article. In contrast to the rosy framing, the former employee said, basically the GOG saying that everything's okay, right? Says
Hmm.
that the trend toward greater revenue share for developers, the Epic Store offers 88% of revenues to developers compared to the 70% offered by GOG and Steam. Will soon put pressure on GOG bottom line. Already has, and we already seen that they're changing the fair price, because but the fair price market was that they would essentially pay for the difference. That's what they were doing, which is
Hmm.
pretty bold, right? And the idea
Yeah.
is that you should pay whatever price, uh, but now, of course, every all prices are set by American prices, and that means some places are very cheap and some places are more expensive. Like, for example, Australia has always been more expensive, and never really explained why exactly, other than they're pegged to the American price and some other factors. Um,
Yeah.
and to continue, it says, means it's just an odd situation, like things got really desperate really fast. I know that February was a really bad month, but January, on the other hand, was excellent. We're in the middle of a general restructuring, moving some teams around, not unprecedented, but a layoff that big has never happened before. It says, well, 12 employees may not sound like a terrible, huge number for its own, but ex-employees admit that they account about 10% of GOG staff. So GOG
Ooh.
is small. It's
Yeah.
120 people. Uh, according to LinkedIn, GOG employs between 51 to 200 people. And this is part of a much larger trend. I think it's maybe a trend of perhaps GOG was able to ride nostalgia, but
Hmm.
now people are sort of moving away from, okay, we bought all the old games and we seeing all the remakes of new games and they're getting remade. Why should we go GOG when we can find them in Steam somewhere else, Epic, or people are just remixing and making these games to work with my machine? So the stuff that GOG was doing doesn't stand out as much, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
And while they do sell new games, definitely, their library of new games versus old games is not as extensive as Steam, or not as aggressive as Epic, right? Epic wants to dominate. The people in Epic want to be the next Steam, right?
Yeah. And honestly, I have to give them kudos for that. They came pretty much right out of the gate swinging, which
Yeah.
is honestly in this market, in order to go up head to head with Steam, you have to do something like that. You have to be bold and innovative, even if they're some would argue like, oh, giving people more money isn't all that innovative in terms of like giving the developers a bigger cut, but it's working.
Mm-hmm.
It we apparently the money speaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just, my thing is with this whole Epic thing, it's just, I think people are hoping it's going to be a trickle down effect. It's like, well, if Epic gives them more, if the developers and publishers more money, then maybe we'll see lower game prices, and we know that's not going to happen.
Yeah. On the other hand, the big game for Epic, which is Fortnite, is losing subscribers. Still
Hmm.
making a lot of money, making billions of dollars, but according to not IGN, but in game, what's these guys over at YouTube? I forgot that they were part of. They were Rooster Teeth.
How the Inside Gaming.
Inside Gaming, yeah. And according to Inside Gaming, and let me give you the headline: Fortnite. Inside, Inside Gaming. I'm not gonna put the video because always the audio pops in. Yeah, revenue drops by 48% according to sources Inside Gaming Daily. Uh, Again, they're still making a lot of money, but again, it follows a trend. Some of them might be because, of course, Apex, and that plays into the problem with the big game, right? That we talked about before, and we're gonna talk today. Um, and maybe what they want to do, Epic wants to take all that. Again, literally, they want to be the Steam. They want to take the money they're making in these games and go like, oh, let's make a store, right? And remember that we have Chinese investors and others who are also big on things like Epic, and they may go like, well, it's and Epic, of course, it's also like Valve, all about making engines as well, right? And being someone
Yeah.
who was a retailer of engines for making video games. I think they really want to be the next Steam. And but like Steam, there's been a lot of complaints as well about their business practices and retail position. The question is, if Fortnite dives enough underneath and doesn't sustain itself, then how does Epic continue to sustain itself? Is it relying mostly on Fortnite? Well, basically, it's spending a lot of money because these moves about getting 88% back to the developers, trying to get exclusives, that costs money. They're spending a lot of money in the hope that they will make it back in sales, and they will have such a big presence quickly enough, aggressively enough, they can do it. But if they can't, Steam is going to go like, well, you tried. My biggest fear is that we'll have Epic is going to essentially push out GOG, and if not necessarily crash and burn, and then instead of having competition for Steam and a healthy competition, we're going to have basically Steam and then all major publishers with their own little stores around it, like satellites, right? Which is not a very consumer-friendly position to be in. Steam or Origin, Steam or Blizzard.net, Steam or
Oh my no! Oh, I just had this terrible thought. Like, imagine if like Sony or like Apple and Microsoft, they have their own Apple and Microsoft stores. Mm-hmm. If they suddenly did do that, like, you know what, we're not selling our products anywhere else other than our specific storefronts. Mm-hmm. You have to go to these physically, and then like say they start licensing it out to like other retailers, like, oh, Target, we'll have a special exclusive deal and you can start selling our products, with certain things. Do you imagine if they started doing something similar like that with like physical retailers? Like they have a digital storefront that's like the only place you can get it online, but then they start offering like special promotional things with like certain retail chains.
Well, they're already doing that with the pre-orders.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they do. But like if it starts becoming like that, they start not selling physical copies, or they do sell like the dumb physical copies in a box which just has a product key, like not even a physical media. And we'll give you a little deal, like you'll be the only one physically selling these in the store, and putting them, having special kiosks and stuff. Can you imagine that? Like
it's possible. I mean, we already have the dummy boxes. We already have the pre-order, deals. Actually, that could be a part of the post Big King crash that we're going to talk about. Because, hold on to that thought, chat, because we might have to talk about that. Yeah, that's not a good thought at all, but it could happen. Now we go to Funcom. On this, I want to skip the bad news. This is interesting to me because the property is interesting to me. So I want to talk about Funcom is making an open world multiplayer Dune game.
Dune?
Yeah. The Conan Exile studio has signed a 6-year deal with Legendary to make at least 3 games based on Dune. Now, for people who don't know, Dune, Frank Herbert's Dune, is a epic sci-fi novel series from the 1960s, who in the 1990s, 80s, and 90s, a little studio you might have heard of called Westwood Studios developed several games, including Dune and Dune 2 and Dune 2000. And Dune 2/Dune 2000 are considered to be the first true RTSs, from which other Westwood Studios RTSs like Command and Conquer came from. And I played them, and they're still fun today. And in fact, Dune 2000 had the typical, film, like real actor and with great blue screen background, cutscenes, and that would become, the way Westwood Studio would do. And of course, Westwood Studios was bought by EA, and we heard about what happened to Last Command and Conquer and whatever. But apparently, Funcom has the Dune property, not EA, for some reason. Yeah.
Hmm.
And they said, Funcom said in a separate statement that the legendary partnership is a 6-year deal for a minimum of 3 games on PC consoles. 6 years for
That,
3
that's
games.
that sounds an awful lot like Bungie's deal with Activision.
Yeah, and that seems just to me that seems like, I mean, if they're supposed to be AAA games and not AA games, right? And then they're supposed to be PC and consoles. 3 games in 6 years, unless they have 3 different teams working on that. Seems like a very compressed timeline. We're talking about what, an average of 2 years to develop and throughout a game, and one of them being an open world multiplayer Doom.
So I sense a lot of recycled assets coming
Yeah.
about.
Well, let's just kind of Exiles, Anarchy Online, Secret World Legends. So yeah, they have they seem to have more. They are capable of putting up more than one game, but still, 6 years. So it takes about 3 years to make a game. Maybe, I don't know. It's just
You're gonna have to have multiple teams working on that, and a lot of communication between everybody.
They also were the ones who put out Mutant Year Zero, Road to Eden. You talked about this earlier, which I want to play that game because it's intriguing, but it has some.
I've heard a lot of issues with it, but I saw it on sale this week on PlayStation Network, which of course doesn't have the issue, but the reason why I didn't buy it at launch was because of DRM. Even if I'm gonna buy it on the PlayStation where De Novo isn't going to be an issue, it's like I don't want to support you now that you not only put this DRM on the PC version, but then the statements you kind of made afterwards. I don't know if I just want to give you my money just now. New studio. This is their first game, I believe. That was that particular studio's first game. But yeah, and I'm trying to be a little more cautious about where I put my money in terms of the gaming industry.
Yeah. Oh, talk about things here. Twitch Prime subscribers getting free Apex Legends skin and packs for February. Because Twitch and it basically sells games as well, sort of. Well, basically through Amazon. So when it says Twitch, it's really Amazon. And then, of course, we have Discord also selling games as well. So we have a lot of people, about that. Yeah, we have a lot of people jumping into this sale of games, but if Epic hits it hard with the exclusives, then what's going to happen? And others are going to go, well, we want our exclusives too, and they're going to pour down a lot of money at a time where the video game industry seems to be losing money across the board. Not a good time to invest. But let me see. What news? Yes. I think we should get to the big news of the week. Activision and EA CEOs appear on the list of most overpaid in the U.S. This is according to PC Gamer. Their pay is more than 300 times that of an average employee. Now, I read a short blog post on Tumblr of all places, but the person who wrote it writes on their Ask a Developer, and I read some of the stuff that they said before, which is pretty dodgy. He made some good points about, for example, executive pay packages, but still, and said, Blizzard is lost. We talked about this before. Blizzard lost half of their stock, etc. Value price, so they cut back on their sports gaming thing and all that. It's like, yeah, but they shouldn't have been in that position in the first place. So, and part of that position is it mentions Activision's Bobby Kotick and EA's Andrew Wilson are the most overpaid CEOs in the U.S. according to As You Sow. The nonprofit has been revealing, among other things, the pay gaps between employees and CEOs since 2015. Recently published a 2019 list featuring the pair. And there's a link to the list. I'm going to put it on the doobly-doo. I'm going to put it on the channel so you know. I try to put all these links here so that you can, double check the stuff yourself, chat. Um, Yes, Andrew Wilson earns okay. Bobby Kotick got tuition with celebrity record profits while laying off hundreds of employees. Ranks highest in the game industry CEOs according to the report. Kotick pay is $28,695,275. That's 306 times more than his average employee. 92% of the shareholders voted to approve of his pay package. They placed him at the 45% spot. So, right there, who's calling the shots, right? He's not going to listen to his employees. He's going to listen to the people who pay for it getting more money. Andrew Wilson is even more, netting $35,728,764, which is 371 times more than his average employee. 97% of EA shareholders approved the pay package. He ranked at 98 overall. Yeah. So when people talk about shareholders and how it's driven by that, then... Then not only the company, depending on their actual costs from the stockholders, it also literally means that the stockholders, I mean, those who have voting rights, vote for how much money the CEO can earn. So yeah, they're their bosses. The CEO bosses they're not the boss. They're the boss of the company, but the stockholders are literally the bosses of the CEO.
Which it's interesting because it says right here, stockholders. I assume that stockholders in general feel like that CEOs get paid more, but then it's like your actions speak louder than words. If the stockholders are constantly voting for increasing their pays.
I mean, yeah, they want this. The stockholders who are still there, haven't sold their shares, believe that the current strategy of microtransactioning everything and all the things they've been doing and games as service still works, right? The thing is, it doesn't seem to be working that well, and eventually what's going to happen is that they're going to retreat. But there's also another part of this. They themselves are stockholders, and in the last 10 years or so, many companies, including video game industry companies, have been doing stock buybacks. So in a sense, yes, just because I just mentioned that the stockholders are in charge, in many ways, it's like Congress in the United States that can vote for its own salary. Yes. So, because, it says 98%, 99%, but here's the thing about stocks. I explained this before and I explain it again. Not all stocks are the same. You have things like legacy stocks, which are sort of like foundation stocks, like the people who came in the beginning. You have stocks that have voting rights at 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, 10-to-1. I could have a single stock that has 100-to-1 vote ratio, that my vote counts like 100 votes of, say, single vote stockholders. So yeah, the percentages are there, and I would have to look closely at the breakdown of how As You Sow did it in the study they did. But yeah, it is a little more complicated than that, and part of it is that CEO compensation package, executive package include owning shares. There are the shares, and if you are owning shares, then essentially you vote for yourself. Although yes, there's a lot of regulations, and again, one of the problems I have with this person says, there's a lot of regulations because SEC there's a lot of regulations on the books, but of late, in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years, the SEC has been known to be very lax when it comes to enforcing these regulations. Right, usually the best form of enforcing these regulations is what's called a stockholder lawsuit, because many of these regulations have that. It's like, if this happens, then the stockholders have a right to sue, rather than the SEC coming in and saying, you broke the law, we're gonna put the handcuffs on you and drive you and take you to prison. So people think, SEC, they can do that, but not always. Or sometimes the law provides for both. It provides for direct government action as well as stockholder lawsuits. And usually what happens if you have a lawsuit, because of how it works, you don't put people in prison at the same time they get sued, because that tends to mess up with things like discovery. That is finding out what happened. So one can interfere with the other. Yeah. Complex.
I just don't understand why it's not like when you become a CEO, you have like a base salary, a reasonable base salary, because let's face it, as much as we probably gripe about how much they make and stuff, you do have to kind of give them a high salary, not millions. That seems ridiculous, but
Mm-hmm.
like they need to have a high salary for what they do. They are managing this large company that has millions of dollars in it, and they are the face of the things when things tend to go wrong for the company.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why they need a high salary, not that high. And what I don't understand is why don't they have a base pay, a reasonable best pay for what the work they do, and have like stocks, because offered stocks in terms of they need to be invested in the company they work for, and if the company does good, their stocks are worth more. There's your bonus. You make a little more if the company's afloat, and if it goes under, then well, you make less
Well,
in
that's
terms of
that's the
bonus.
idea. Most of executive compensation is in stocks. So
Yeah,
the
and
the theory is that if the business does badly, then you're gonna take a hit, right? But there's two
yeah,
things. Go ahead. Yeah.
and that's supposed to be the motivation for it, like because you can't have a disgruntled like CEO wanting to run the company down.
Yeah. But the thing is, there were two things. First of all, the gold and platinum packages.
Yes.
We're gonna kick you if you don't serve for 4 or 5 years or something like that. There's a compensation package like, oh, I did my job. I fulfilled these contract requirements. So here's a million or two, whatever how much money it is, and then they cash in their stock and do all those things. So maybe they don't. They keep the contract because you can be multiple boards as well. You can be a CEO in one company and a CFO. Like Bobby Kotick, I think is a CF. He's in the board Coca-Cola, right?
Mm.
As well as being the CEO of Activation Blizzard, right? That's one thing. The other thing is what the market reacts to, right? If cutting costs drives your short-term stocks up, if the market always reacts, or things reacts positively to say firing people, even though it might be a long-term, it hurts your morale, etc., long-term, not a long-term solution, short-term solution, then your interest, because you're a stockholder as well, is to make sure that your profits go up, especially if you've done stock buybacks. So the company owns more stock, which rises the cost, elevates the cost of stock, and does it. And also one thing, again, answering this person, is that while stock prices are not fixed, one of the things that these companies don't do is pay dividends, or pay dividends as often as they do, because when you pay dividends, in a way, the moment you announce that you're going to pay dividends, you're kind of temporarily freezing the stock, because everybody's like, oh, you're paying $100 literally for the stock. So that's what it's worth, because you pay $100 or $1,000 or whatever, right? I mean, eventually it will, there'll always be fluctuations before and after, but for a moment you're freezing them, and of course you're paying out money, which you're kind of losing money in a sense. But stockholders are getting what they want, but most stockholders don't want to, because they get their profit from the difference, right? The more their stock rises, the more they're supposed to make money at the time of sale, which they're free to sell any moment unless they're members of the company. But there you go.
Yeah.
So
And video games.
capitalism, corporate law.
Actually,
Yeah.
actually, it'd be neat if somebody could make like a video game based on like the stock market and make it interesting and understandable.
Yeah. And now let's talk about some part of news that before we go into anything proper, we tickled that a little bit. This is just I saw and I was like, oh dear God, why? And everybody who's seen it is like, why? THQ Nordic apologizes for granting interview to the toilet of the internet, 8chan. When
Yes.
PC Gamer, who I seen some people on some people who comment on PC Gaming Forum, Game Informers, says that 8chan is the toilet of the internet. He's going down the bowl, right? They apologize.
Yeah, so essentially the president of THQ, they're supposed to hold a Ask Me Anything, and for some reason they were like, we're gonna do it on 8chan, which I didn't know what 8chan was until the report kind of said it. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
So it's essentially 4chan. I take it, and I take it the eight's like, oh, we're gonna be better than 4chan. We're gonna make 8chan. That's my
Yeah.
first thought.
It literally,
And then,
that's what it is. Yeah.
but it seems that it's pretty much overrun with fascism and pedophiles.
Yeah,
So
all the people that were thriving 3 or 4 years ago in Reddit, and then in 4chan, and I go to 8chan,
essentially
and
they're like
16chan, and I don't know, 32chan, whatever, how many chans they want to
so
put in.
so I take it they were purged at some point from these other places, and they were like, well, we're gonna make our own chan. And
Now
okay.
there's an update to this story because, and I'm gonna read it in full to make sure that people understand what I'm talking about here. Update: Coffee Stain Studios, or more specifically the Twitter account to its upcoming game, point out which the game that they were gonna talk about and the HN. The situation between THQ Nordic that has going to host an AMA on HN and the THQ Nordic that acquired the developer. Among many others, THQ Nordic GmbH, the subject of this article, is a subsidiary of THQ Nordic AB and sister company to Coffee Stain Studios. The confusion isn't just down to the similarity in name. THQ Nordic doesn't always make the distinction. The THQ Nordic Twitter account that advertised at HNMA, for example, the simultaneous use of the announcements for both AB and GmbH, which I think is German. That's a German terminology. And seems to represent both of them. Yeah.
So where they're like, oh, we thought that was 4chan. Well, 4chan, 8chan, what's the difference? Is that their excuse?
Let me read you the apology. THQ Nordic, this is from the Twitter account. I personally agreed to this AMA without doing my proper due diligence to understand the history and the controversy of the site. I do not condone child pornography, white supremacy, or racism, and yada yada. Well, we don't like that stuff, but we're gonna go to the places where everybody hang out. We're gonna go to that corner over there with the, with the Nazi flags because reasons.
White supremacist pedophiles. That's just a pretty odd and gross concept. I'm like, yeah, that's where I wanna talk about my new upcoming video game.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy.
Yeah, so I don't. This is probably going to overshadow the game, whatever game they were talking about. But then again, if you've seen my review of freaking Legends of K, I guess I shouldn't be surprised considering how the portrayal of Asian culture and questionable age of the main characters.
Yeah. I mean, people, even people who go MAA on Reddit, which usually where you have the AMAs, they go like, yeah, this might not go so well. EA, for example, that happened to EA.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah. So, I mean, you are on the... Because I find it very hard to believe they didn't have somebody in that office go like, what?
Well,
yeah, we're going to an MA. Okay, cool. On HN. Yeah, sure. Nope. What? Excuse me? What?
Well,
no, stop. No, just...
Maybe we can give everyone the benefit of the doubt that everyone who was on this was like never heard of it because they're that, I guess, innocent, pure.
You
but
can't
even
say
then,
they're not tech savvy because they work for video game companies, right?
I mean, I've never heard of 8chan. I've heard of 4chan. I don't know too much about it, but I'd be like, I wouldn't hold an Ask Anything on 4chan. I'm like, I hear a lot of trolls and mean people hang out over there. I don't think I want to do a Ask Me Anything there.
And this is also their way of doing advertising. So you gotta do due diligence. You gotta, it's like, why did you choose that, right? It's like, what were the reasons? Oh, it's a popular, discussion board on the internet.
Oh, okay.
Why is it a popular? Well, I don't know. I heard somebody. I know my second cousin who, likes lolly chants. Lolly manga. He something or something. He's like the
Which
51-year
which is
old.
now that you mentioned lolly, isn't that so? That's like anime-ish kind of thing, and it's like white supremacist, huh? That kind of doesn't seem to go hand in hand, or someone that's protested too much.
Yeah. Well, let me say it this way. This is not, we might talk about this in the future, but that's gonna be a hell of a show to talk about all these
Yeah,
things mixed together, because maybe we were bored and we just want to really go into the literally in the toilet bowl of the internet. But here we go. So we're gonna move beyond the chance and go into everybody's favorite dumping ground, Anthem, because why not? Two pieces of news here. First one is this one is a bit iffy in that it's a percentage of a percentage. This is from Game Rant, and this is about physical copies. Again, this is about physical copies, but here goes the news. Anthem sold 10% of what Destiny once sold in the UK retail. Without a doubt, the launch of Electronic Arts BioWare's new Addiction RPG. This is their statement of Game Rant, not my statement, their words. Anthem has, I wouldn't go without a doubt unless I had no doubt, has been without its flaws, whether it's due to the amount of lengthy load times and blah, blah. With that being the case, a lot of the issues and many more have dissuaded gamers from purchasing titles, and now been revealed that Anthem physical sales for its first week in the UK only reached around 10% of what Destiny sold during the first week in the region. Yeah. Caveats: UK only, and physical copies.
physical sales. Yeah,
However, you would think that. Well, here's the thing. This is one of these news. More than whether or not that's an actual number that shows that Anthem is doing poorly, is that we don't know because we don't have any other reference data. The video game industry does hate it to tell us the stuff about the truth because they hate to be
yeah.
criticized, and they feel that somebody's gonna find some kind of secret, which. And so
Yeah, and unless of course that number is really big and impressive, then they'll parade it everywhere.
even then they do like estimates. They don't do concrete. They haven't done like concrete sale numbers in a while because again, I explained this before. It's more about the daily concurrent users and all that than the actual sales, right? So that's why you have to keep people. So you keep enough people playing to feed the whales. Then there you go. The information regarding Anthem physical sales in the UK comes from the video game industry analyst at Nico Partners, Daniel Ackman. Sales are accurate. I horribly mangled that last name. I apologize to Mr. Daniel. Yeah, that's the first name I know. These sales are accurate. It means that roughly 40,000 box copies of Anthem were sold in the UK during the first week, as the original Destiny sold around 417,000 tangible copies in the region. Also means that BioWare previous effort, Mass Effect Andromeda, which some people have said actually is better than Anthem. Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
This first week physical sales were more than double that of Anthem's. We're noting through the UK publishing top tail sales week ending in February 23rd, 2018, and Anthem officially taking the number one spot on the physical sales charts for the UK. So despite only having around 10% of that Destiny did in the first week in the region, Anthem has still managed to beat out other new releases as Metro Exodus and Far Cry New Dawn for the time being. Yeah, but it's February. Yeah, first of all, it's February. It's not November. And yes, again, mostly, it's like cable television, like the cable television effect, right? When you had 3 channels, everybody watching the US, and so you had most people watching television watching one of those channels. Now you have 200 channels or 500 channels or 1,000 channels, and so a very small percentage of people watch any one channel. So if 1 million people watch this show, it's like, oh wow, this is a great thing ever, compared to say 15 million were watching it 30 years ago, one of the channels. So kind of like that, I think.
But to take this into consideration, if you want to go down there, let's look at the games that released. Was it 2017? Mass Effect Andromeda released in 2017 in March, compared to what Anthem is competing for right now in February. So some big names that are popping up to me: Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild came out that same month. Right before it, Nier Automata came out. You got Dead Rising 4, which I wouldn't consider that real competition. let's see, Dreamfalls, the Kingdom Hearts re-release,
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, Dark Souls 3 DLC, Snake Pass. So Mass Effect Andromeda didn't have that much competition in terms of new games that release
Mm-hmm.
at that point. So I say they're probably on equal footing.
But I think it already had a pre-established
Yeah, and that's on top of
following.
having a
Yeah.
pre-established thing. And the Switch did release that month too. So maybe like you could even say that Mass Effect Andromeda probably had competition from maybe drew some sales or had some sales drawn away from the Switch
Mm-hmm.
because of the Switch, even though you can also argue that the fans of Mass Effect may and people who would like the Switch may not overlap, but that I can see arguments either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the thing. This game that was so critically panned by almost everybody is did better and is being said that it's better than the newest game that just came out, but from BioWare.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
I think the reason why it's been banned, even well, Anthem has been banned, unlike Andromeda, is that it doesn't fit the mold that BioWare has been doing for the last 30 to 10, 15 years, right? It is not BioWare's type of game.
and even then they have been breaking away from their mold. When you
Yeah.
look at say Dragon Age Inquisition to say a Neverwinter's Nights game.
But
They
they've
they're
been modifying and improving and expanding on still basically single player RPGs, right? Anthem is just looter shooter MMO light kind of situation, so it is a big change.
It is.
Overall. So
Even though right now that I've been replaying like I've been replaying Inquisition, it's like, oh my god, I can see how they're like, between Andromeda and Inquisition, how it's been leading up to something like Anthem with the open world and the just like the grinding.
and to go with that news from Yahoo Finance, EA shooter looter game Anthem disappoints, hurts stock. That's it. Yeah, this is finance news, not me saying it. A much awaited shooter looter Anthem has received a lukewarm response from critics as well as players. Before official release, the full game was available for, and also the release as well has been a mess. But TechCrunch, the demo version was botched up effort from the company. Notably, following the game's early release in February 15, the stock tumbled 10.3%. Wow, I will say. The competition intensifies. Activision, Take-Two. EA currently holds a Sachs rank of number 4. Sell. That little piece of news is not good. It's like, oh, get rid of it, sell it, get your money, get out. That's not good.
Yeah.
So, which leads us, I think, directly to today's subject. We have about 15 or so minutes to cover it. And that's what happens next. If we have a crash, not of the industry, but just of this idea, that the idea of the live service crashes. I mean, there'll still be live service games, and just like you have MMOs, which are basically live service games, and this is nothing new. But overall crashes, the question is, and I put this to Chad and to you, Chapel, and everyone else, what happens next?
So what's gonna happen next is the industry is gonna look at what's the next biggest or thing that seems to be working. So people, I think the craze might be dying down a little, but the next thing would be the battle royale thing. So people are going to be like, hey, let's jump on the next bandwagon and try to make it a thing, try to make it successful. And I think, especially with Apex Legends being released before Anthem and doing way better than Anthem is, and kind of like a surprise hit for EA, I think they're going to look at that and be like, maybe we should make our games more like this. Maybe free to play with like some monetization in it. Maybe that might be a good thing if they don't take it too far, if they don't start making the monetization egregious. But we know these companies, they're probably going to. They're probably going to be like, ooh, that's what we should do. Mobile games for consoles and PCs. That's what they're gonna do. It's being like, let's make mobile games. Let's not make these free to pay games, as Jim Sterling would call them. Let's make them free to play, like mobile like games, but for consoles. I think that's that's essentially what I suspect is going to happen when they're going to look at these two things. But in terms of if the open world monetization fee to pay thing isn't going to work, they're just going to look for a new way to try to make more revenue. Maybe they'll start cutting back on game releases and put, I hate this term, but like put more eggs in one basket, and maybe or they might make smaller games. They're going to start changing up their formula. Then either they discover it or some other studio discovers it. They're gonna hit they're gonna make a golden goose accidentally, and they'll be like, we made Game Busters, let's copy them. Or we discovered a golden goose, let's make more of it. So that's what I predict is gonna happen.
I think the problem with saying that they will, we were already talking about last year, everybody wanted to do a battle royale, right? And what we've seen is every time a new battle royale, here's the thing, what happens with battle royales, because battle royale comes from survival, right? Which was the big thing back then, right? Survival games, right? And before that, there was, and that games were going very high on pre-orders on Steam, and then they would crash because then everybody would migrate to the next game, and we kind of see like that. It's like, PUBG comes out, okay, huge game. Fortnite, PUBG's doing money, still making money even to this day, but a lot of people are like, Fortnite is the next hotness. Now the next hotness is Apex Legends, right? You can have you have 1, 2, 3, right? You have your gold, silver, and bronze, but there's not a lot of space for it. So I think right now with Apex Legends, we're also seeing another wave cresting as well, right? And what I think is going to happen is it's going to crest even faster as they start jumping to that. It's like, let's do that because we already have that. Like the temptation for EA to go like, okay, grab, by the throat, not even by the lapels, by the throat, something like Apex Legends, go like and wring all the money. It's probably it's going to kill it more than anything else, right? I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a correction in the ways like the MMO market's still there, both light and traditional, but people are going to like, okay, there's some games out there. Like one of the things I've seen was the news that one of the MMO producers for South Korea saying, we're not going to launch more MMOs on the West because there's no market for it anymore, right?
Yeah, and wasn't it one of the studios also too? We didn't talk about it, or was that last week where they were kind of, you know what, we're gonna lay off some people and we're gonna taper down our aging MMOs. I believe that was a new story this week or last week.
I think it was last week. Yeah. I don't recall who it was. I probably have it tip of my tongue.
It's a Korean. Yeah. I believe it was a Korean.
And they're basically pulling out of the Western market because MMOs.
Korean, yes.
Okay. Now, NCSoft.
NCSoft, yeah. NCSoft was huge back in the day with City of Heroes and stuff like that, but that market has, again, no video game type dies. They just shrink, right? They grow big, they grow huge. Everybody wants to do it, and then it goes back into the little corner, and then they get rediscovered. People say, well, what about fantasy RPGs and shooters? Well, the thing about shooters and fantasy RPGs is that you constantly are remaking the the way they are played. So thematically, they're fantasy RPGs, for example, but Dragon Age Inquisition doesn't play the way Dragon Age Origin plays, and Dragon Age Origin doesn't play the same way that it plays, say, Baldur's Gate, and Baldur's Gate doesn't play the same way I was playing, like Bard's Tale. Right? They're basically the same. They're a group of people who go and kill monsters and get treasure, but they play very differently because they
like say take Final Fantasy X versus Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah,
very different.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. It's like these genres aren't going to go away either. Like studios are going to still make these games as service, open world looter shooter things, or whatever Anthem wants to call itself. First off, the studios may like, oh, you know what? This trend is kind of dying and we've been kind of burned. So they might be hesitant to greenlight such projects. And even then, they're still going to make them. Like there was the big shooter craze. Everyone was jumping on the bandwagon from Call of Duty, making their own shooter game. You had like Medal of Honor, you had Battlefield, you had all these other Me Too IPs and properties, and the shooters haven't gone away. The Call of Duty is still a thing. Battlefield's still a thing. They may not be as big anymore, but they're still putting them out. The Assassin's Creed thing, I guess that was a trend. They're still making Assassin's Creed.
Stealth games, and yeah. Although Assassin's Creed has moved away from the stealthiness more and more, right? More an RPG.
Yeah. And like the MMORPG thing, that was a craze. There's still MMOs out there that are actually still being produced. It's just they're just not as prevalent.
I think it also and I guess it's coincides with the way I'm playing right now, so I'm just seeing it from the lens, my personal lens of playing on Twitch. I'm seeing more Japanese games that were in Japan, like the Yakuzas and the Ace Combat series, and the Dark Souls and all that, coming to PC in the West, and they're more they're a game with a gimmick, right? Because Ace Combat is funky, crazy stories and cool fighter planes, and you're doing all these maneuvers and shooting all these missiles and blowing up these crazy planes. The Dark Souls games is live, die, live again kind of situation, and ultra hard. Yakuza is just, again, this sort of criminal soap opera story with all these mini games and just going around and beating the living crap out of people, right? I mean, Yakuza has been, depending who you are, it's been. I see more of those games. I see an opening for Japanese games to come back, not Japanese consoles in the early, and also because Sony's still doing very strong. I think the real linchpin is going to be 2020. For a lot of reasons, I keep talking 2020 because of, international markets and the possibility of another recession, but also when the consoles either are going to be released or, if, for example, if Microsoft says that they're going to release announce a new console in 2019, it's going to come out, Christmas of 2019 to 2020. That 2020 is going to be their starting year. If Sony's going to release one for 2020, and new Switch might come in 2020, so 2020 is going to be the thing, and whichever one of those consoles becomes the lowest common denominator based on the game they have, I think that's the one where everybody's going to pivot to that one. Right.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, too, if a new console gets released, is going to be backwards compatibility. There was an article that I saw today. It's like that maybe Sony might be dabbling in backwards compatibility with its legacy consoles. And especially if, at this point, like with the PlayStation 4, Sony doesn't have any excuse to not make the PlayStation 5 backwards compatible with PlayStation 4. But it's going to be interesting to see. And honest backwards compatibility is going to be a thing that keeps your console alive or sustained in the middle of like new releases when it comes to new consoles.
Yeah, I'm seeing that right now the strategies with consoles is Sony is trying to be still a console maker because that makes a lot of money for them. They're successful. They're being traditional. Microsoft, I think what they're trying to do is turn the Xbox as a cheaper alternative to PC gaming.
Yes.
Like, oh, you don't want to buy it or make your own PC. here's a a wireless box, right? Costs about $200 and let you play all the same games, right? Because you're gonna play them with controllers anyway. All those games you're gonna play with a controller. Maybe we had a keyboard, right? I think they're taking the idea of the again the Steam box and going like, yeah, sure, we can do that. We're trying to do that since 1999. So here we go. And Nintendo's gonna go. I mean,
they're going to do their thing.
They're going to do their thing, and I think everything that Nintendo's going to put out from now on is going to be mobile. Mobile devices, in the sense of portable devices. After the Switch, they're not going to go back to a conventional console. There's no reason for them to do that, right? And I think, again, it depends. Because we may end up with Xbox sort of disappearing, being absorbed in PC gaming. Like just being appendages of PC gaming, and then you go back to Japanese console makers being the console makers that are really dominating, right? As distinct things, as opposed to just being PCs in a box. But yeah, this is where things get very murky. It's very easy to say, "Oh, this is gonna fail, this is gonna fail," but after that, it's like,
yeah, and of course the thing is to bring it back to the point is that these developers and publishers are also going to have to adapt to that market as well. Mm-hmm. Because especially what if it starts becoming, what if say like the Switch starts taking off, or Sony decides to follow in the Switch's footsteps and makes like a hyped up Vita that's actually successful, and it's like it's going to be a little more portable, but it's not going to be as powerful, so it's not going to be able to handle all those open world looter shooter story driven whatever.
Yeah, I think even Microsoft might end up going the way of Sega, right? Being their gaming division is going to be more a support division because they're making moves to Switch and making moves for PC. Like the Xbox is going to be a thing they did, like Sega used to do consoles, but now Microsoft gaming is like, oh, you want your games on your Switch? Here's the thing: you want to cross-platform your PC with your PlayStation. That you can do things like, well, do you have a console? We have that $150 box over there, and Target.
You don't have a PC.
You have a PC, okay, you buy it, whatever, until you actually get a PC, and maybe there's a keyboard adapter to that and a mouse, and you can navigate in or whatever we call it.
That's going to be like the next frontier for Xbox is trying to get Sony to kind of put their services on the PlayStation.
Yeah,
that would be interesting to see. Honestly, I would be personally down for that. I don't have to invest in like having to upgrade my computer or something, and I already have a PlayStation 4, and it's like I don't want to spend money on a PlayStation or on an Xbox One to say I don't play Quantum Break. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. That's sort of exclusive to Xbox One. It's like, I want to play Quantum Break. That looked interesting. I've heard it's terrible, but I don't want to pay a console. And let's just say my PC wouldn't be able to support it. And I don't really want to invest it in my PC.
The thing that would be very interesting, because you see Microsoft sparing their way and essentially kind of they're basically expanding their ecosystem to the point where it's no longer viable as a closed ecosystem. What happens if they reach out to Steam or GOG, or instead of making the Microsoft Store, it's like, the Microsoft Store is a seller in Epic Games, right? You go to Epic Games, and within Epic Games it's like Microsoft Store, Apple, whatever, right? It's just one option. But they have their back catalog and they have all those things. And it's like, oh, by the way, you can also buy, if you buy $150 Xbox, diskless Xbox, wireless Xbox, you can also buy stuff on the Epic Game Store or Steam or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. That might be interesting as well. Again, becoming a retailer / occasional game developer. They bought a lot of game companies. Right?
Yeah. Let's see if they can just put them to good use. Mm-hmm.
So I think
that debatable.
That might make this E3 far more interesting than I thought it might be. Because there's a lot of bad news, and we're going to really see whether or not the industry... Well, they're going to double down. The first thing they're going to say is, we're doubling down. But then they're going to, at the end of the show, it's like, oh, by the way, we're also trying this. And I think when they say they're going to try this, that's the hint of really where things might be going. So we have to wait to E3 and see what happens. But
I'm looking forward to the Devolver Digital's presentation. Honestly,
yeah. Well, that's all for this show. We did mostly news and some commentary, or mostly news with commentary. Chapelmon, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chapelmon pretty much everywhere. I am Chapelmon_Aragon on Twitch and Twitter, but I primarily exist on YouTube as just under Chapelmon.
And you can find me here on Twitch on Lessons Learned 1. We try to do this every Wednesday, so you can join us here. You can also go down the list where the Discord is the link. You can go there. Let me this is the Discord link, so you can join us there. Of course, a follow, a sub, or a bit are always welcome. And you can find the branching of these things on on my YouTube channel, also under Lessons Learned. I'm doing more. I'm playing Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen this week and continue to play it until a new game catches my fancy, and I'm having a great time with Dragon's Dogma, so I doubt that very much. And also we're probably gonna see more D&D prep online. I'm doing more RPG stuff, not game design as well as RPG prep. So thank you all for coming. As always, we'll see you when we see you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.